Hello, everyone. Good. For me, I'm in Toronto. Actually, I'm in Ajax, Ontario. So it's 9:45 a.m. where I am. So good morning. But wherever you are, I want to welcome you here today. And I also, I'm going to just do a quick formal introduction to who I am. So my name is Saddiya Rose. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a career educator with career exploration and education. And like many people in the University of Toronto community, I'm a settler on this land. I'm actually an immigrant settler on this land. And so as I deliver this virtual session, I want to recognize and acknowledge the traditional caretakers of the land that I currently reside on. So as I mentioned before, I'm in Durham, Ontario, which is traditionally known as the Mississaugas of Squaxin Island First Nation. And so we acknowledge this land out of respect for the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America, from before the arrival of settler peoples until this day. And most importantly, we want to always remember the history of these lands, which have been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who call them home. So I encourage you all to reflect on the land that you're on, think about the traditional caretakers and our role and responsibility in taking care of this land. And as we engage together today, the hope is, and I've really enjoyed reading, a little bit of your introductions. So your departments, kind of what you're into right now, and that's really good to see. I'm hoping that we can keep this engagement and this interaction going. So I really do appreciate and value that we're all coming to this space with diverse personal, professional, academic, and life experiences. And so as there may be differences in opinion or experiences, I ask that you remain kind, courteous, and respectful when folks are sharing their perspectives. And as I mentioned earlier, we are hoping for, an interactive session. We do have a couple of hours together today, and so we want to make the most of it. All right, so let's get started. So a quick plan for our time together today. So what we're going to do, we're going to identify 6 key elements of the job search process. We're also going to explore some labor market resources to identify career options. We're also going to look at the idea and concept of networking and kind of why it matters, right? And I was really happy to see that a couple of you here today are, very comfortable networking and reaching out. So I'd love to hear about some of your experiences and how you were able to form and to grow your connections. Okay. We're going to talk also about job applications, so how to leverage your international experience. And then I'm hoping we have time. We'll go into a little bit about negotiating job offers. All right. So just to get us started, I know some of you shared your department and kind of what you're taking, but I would like to hear your specific discipline. I know some of you did share that, and the types of jobs. I want to hear about the jobs that you're thinking about, like what's brewing in terms of career goals. So what type of jobs are you interested in? So feel free to add that to the chat. If you wanted to jump on the audio, I'm very open to hearing voices. So anything that's comfortable for you. Okay, so Amin is looking into power electrical engineering and research-based jobs. Ronaldo is looking at electrical engineering positions, wonderful. Brian is into mechanical engineering, preferably robotics, perfect. We have renewable energy and data. Nice, space engineering. Very good. Photonics, that's the first time I've heard this term. I'd love to hear more. Finding R&D jobs in the field, perfect. Mechanical engineering, we have lots of folks in mechanical. Microbiology, perfect. Electrical, so we have lots of kind of common threads with folks who are in this space today. So, I do encourage you, it could be your first opportunity for networking. So if there is space to do so, stay connected, because you never know how relationships will grow. And we'll talk more about that today. All right, let me see, Dimitri, doing an emphasis in the elite program. What's that? That sounds fancy. And so I would like to work in the business innovation of the engineering world. Wonderful. Good, lots of robotics. Perfect. Thank you. Keep them coming. It's good to hear the types of career goals that you all have. Great. And it's also good to know, it's important for you to have an idea of what types of jobs or what types of industries you want to work in after you've completed your courses, because that helps with direction, right? Because some folks, you do a degree and you're not sure where to go, what to do. So it's nice when you start thinking about next steps, even before you've completed your program. So perfect. Okay, so let's talk about really quickly the job search process. So for those of you who've worked, for those of you who are looking for jobs right now, what would you say is involved in getting a job? What does this look like? What are some of the key elements? Please share this in the chat. I'd like to hear voices. So if you wanted to share audio, I'd welcome that as well. So what have you done for job search or to job search? Oh, aircraft design, very nice. We'll give folks a few minutes. I want to hear what you've done so far to look for work. All right, here we go. So we're making sure our resumes are targeted. You're networking with folks in the industry. Wonderful. Love to hear more about that networking. Applying through LinkedIn and CLNX. Good. CLNX is, a resource that should never be underutilized. You should always overutilize CLNX. So that's perfect. Submitting applications, so as many as possible, but I'm hoping though, and this is something we'll talk about together as well, you want to focus a lot on quality over quantity sometimes, and making sure that you are, if this job is, 100% matched with your experience, you want to take time to make sure that you're, you're putting together a really customized resume, and maybe taking it a step further to reach out to folks maybe who are working in that role or in that company as well. Okay, good. What else are we doing? We are obsessing over resumes. Oh boy, Todd. All right, so we're making sure our resume is, crossing every T and dotting every I. We want to make sure it's tailored. Yes, we'll talk about that a bit today. LinkedIn is wonderful, Christina. Applying as much as possible on LinkedIn. We're using Indeed as well. Yes, the company career website. So very good point here. So sometimes, and we'll talk about this today as well, there are, what's called work or job site aggregators, right? So your Workopolis, your LinkedIn, all these sources are funnels for the postings. However, sometimes, with the company, they've invested in an applicant tracking system, and they can see how folks have applied for the jobs, right? And sometimes they'll go directly to folks who've applied through the company website. So just going through that channel sometimes is, especially if you know the type of companies you want to work for, that is a good strategy as well. Okay, networking. So I want to hear more, Adrian. Having relevant experience and editing your CV. Ooh, attended backpack to briefcase session. Wonderful. Connect with people on LinkedIn. OSPI, we're going to talk about that as well. So OSPI is a wonderful resource for engineers or folks who are looking to become engineers. They partner with a lot of employers. They have lots of events, lots of opportunities to network as well. And yeah, so the backpack to briefcase, I believe, Sherry, is, where you're meeting with alumni, correct me if I'm wrong, and doing, informational sessions or learning a little more about what they do in their roles. Perfect. Okay, good. Thank you all for sharing. Let's move it right along. So what are we doing in the job search process? So number one, right, for those of you who, maybe you're searching right now and exploring, different roles within your field, there's the exploration phase. And then you want to make sure that you're researching, right? And then you're going to start finding opportunities, right? The second thing that you want to do is you want to understand the skills required for the jobs that you're interested in, okay? And if you see that there's a certain skill set or there's a technical software that you keep seeing repeated on postings and you don't have it, perhaps this is an opportunity for you to upskill, right? So Coursera is available to you through U of T. Some of you through your public libraries, you'll have access to LinkedIn Learning. There are what some of the other sites. It's slipping. Skillshare. There are other online platforms where you can learn some of the skills that you need for the jobs that you're interested in. Okay, so that might be something that you have to consider as well. Number three, so we want to engage in networking, and we'll talk about that in detail today. You want to make sure, as I think Todd shared, we don't want to obsess, but we want to make sure that your resume and your application documents are up to date and that they're tailored for the jobs that you're interested in. You want to start preparing for and practicing interviewing. Very, very important. So once you've started to actively job search, you're sending those resumes out, those tailored resumes, you want to start thinking about that prep, just in case you start, not even just in case. So when you start getting phone interviews, you're ready for that next step, okay? And you want to make sure that you're staying organized, right? So have like an Excel spreadsheet with, maybe your dates, maybe things that you've applied for, the people that you've connected with, right? To try to stay organized and as much as possible, do things to keep your motivation levels up. Okay, so go ahead. You have a question, thought, comment?
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm new to U of T, so because you also talking about prepare and practice interviewing, so I wonder, is there any like resources at U of T that help us to kind of like mock interview?
Yes, wonderful. Good question. Thank you, though. Yes, so I'm going to, in a couple of minutes, I want to show, for some of you who are not familiar with CLN, I call it CLNX. We do have a really nice calendar of events and workshops. And something that happened a couple of weeks ago was a mock interview session with employers. So employers were on our virtual campus, they were on Zoom, and students had an opportunity to practice interviewing with hiring managers, right? And you can also practice with the career education team. So that's definitely something that I can walk you through sometime today. So I'll show you that whole CLN world. All right, thanks for your question, though. Okay, what else are we doing? So to start us off, so we're exploring. So some of the exploration that can happen, and again, I'm going to talk a lot about CLNX because there are so many resources housed there. So job shadowing is one of the programs that we offer, which, maybe I should ask, has anyone here been enrolled in job shadowing before? Can I get a hands up, a thumbs up? Any hands up? No? No job shadowers? No? Okay. All right, so job shadowing, very quickly, what it is, it's a program where we've partnered with a number of employers in different industries. So we have folks in engineering, folks in architecture, like all across the board, a number of different careers, and students have an opportunity to shadow, right? So before, they were going into offices, right? They were going into work establishments just to see what the industry professional does on a regular day-to-day basis. But now it's all happening on Zoom for now. So what happens in the sessions is that the industry professional walks students through what their day-to-day kind of operation looks like, what this role entails, what the career path would look like, right? And you get really good insight on whether or not this is something that you want to pursue. Perhaps, there's an opportunity to get connected with other people in that same industry, lots of room for networking there as well. All right, and job shadowing is offered every semester. You're able to do it. And then we have, for the last 3 months, so starting in September, we had a number of employers who were doing recruitment information sessions. Again, this is on SailNX under events and workshops. And this week, I encourage you to bookmark a couple of the sessions that are happening. So H. Angus and Associates, they're an engineering firm. They'll be here on October 27th at 5 p.m. So they're looking for internships and interns, and new grads. And they're basically walking students through what they look for, what their company's culture and, is, the types of services they offer, and how to succeed, within their organization, right? So these would be good sessions for you to attend just to see what employers are looking for. Isaac is another one happening on November 2nd at 5:30 p.m. And then the Public Service Commission is also here this week, and they'll be here at 5 p.m. So have a look, and I'll show that to you all in a few minutes. And then Job Bank, we're going to go through this as well today. So Job Bank, I think for me, it's bookmarked. I use Job Bank so much. I've used it throughout my career as well, because Job Bank is a good source and a good resource for you to identify, trends within your industry, the types of jobs that folks are moving into with similar degrees like what you have, right? And then the most important thing is also talking to people, which is ideally networking. All right, what are some other ways to research? So researching can happen on sites like Ontario Labor Market Information, right? So again, this is where you can see, what's the outlook for the careers that you're interested in? What are jobs, or what's the market looking like for the next 3 to 5 years? Is this a career that's going to be sustainable? Is this something that is worth pursuing, right? You'll get that information on some of these sites. Stats Canada is perfect as well for if you really wanted to dig in and do that research. Sometimes folks use Industry Canada, especially if you're going into business and if you're looking to perhaps launch your own firms, right? And move into that entrepreneurial zone. That's a good source for you to use as well. And then there are think tanks, right? So the Center for Policy Alternatives, Conference Board of Canada, lots of information that you can find there. Professional associations, so I think Sherry talked about OSPI, right? There's PEO, for those of you who are going through that process of becoming a licensed PNG, right? The Canadian Society of Professional Engineers is another one, and that covers the entire, Canadian landscape. And then there are unions as well. So for those of you who are probably going into electrical engineering or similar types of roles, you might be connected to a union, which helps again with, with that job search and with connecting you to employers who are looking for your skills, right? All right, very quickly, what are some of the job search? What are some sites that you've used to research or to find opportunities? That's our next step, finding opportunities. When I see a question here from our approve, what if companies that come are not from the field that we plan to land a job in? Should we still join some of the sessions for experience or wait for the companies that we're interested in? Yes, so I would suggest, it's good to, even if it's not specifically material science or specifically aeronautical science or whatever your specialization is, I would say that it's good to attend just to hear, right? Hear what employers are looking for. Listen to some of the, they'll tell you about success stories. So maybe interns who have thrived and really succeeded in their organization. Listen to some of those stories, right? You want to hear about, what's happening perhaps in their industry. There could be some connection, right? And it might help you to prepare for, your job search as well. So I would say go. if you have the time, it's good to hear what employers are looking for, especially if it's in the engineering space. All right, so Sumitra is using LinkedIn, and I'm assuming ResearchGate. Let's see, I don't know what ResearchGate, let me see this. Okay, so we're using Glassdoor, yes. Teresa, thank you. LinkedIn, Indeed, wonderful. Okay, good. So lots and lots of these job search aggregators, right? Monster.ca or monster.com, I've heard with Monster, I've worked with students in software development, and they like to use Monster to house their resumes. That's a tip that I heard a couple of years ago. So they've set up a profile in Monster, their resumes are there, because what happens sometimes, recruiters will just be browsing profiles, right? They might not post a job, but they might just want to see some of the resumes that are available that have the keywords that they're looking for, right? So I've heard that Monster works for that as well. Charity Village is a really good site if you're looking to get into nonprofit work. So if you wanted to do maybe project management within that not so much corporate space, that's a good site for looking as well. And then Career Edge. So Career Edge is an internship. It's a site where you can find internships, and it's for new grads, it's for newcomers to Canada, and for veterans. Go ahead. Someone sharing? Selena, go ahead. Oh, no? Did you have a thought, Selena? Or a question, comment? Okay. All right, and then there are opportunities for remote work, especially with the, with what has happened in the last couple of years, or the last year and a half. I forget what year we're in. But yes, so remote and freelance job search websites are also an avenue for you to find positions as well. Okay, so these are other opportunities or other places where you can find opportunities. So we talked about CLNX, so those job boards are essential, I think, to your job search. And there are a number of jobs that are posted for casual work, for volunteer opportunities, for off-campus jobs, and on-campus jobs as well. So we're going to look at Job Bank shortly. Ontario Public Service Careers is also another resource that they basically post summer employment opportunities within OPS. All right, so let's do a quick demo. So jobbank.gc.ca. Can I get a thumbs up? Is everyone seeing Job Bank on my screen? A thumbs up, a yes, a no, a maybe. Perfect, thank you. Wonderful, okay, good. All right, so let me just go back because I think I went too far. So let's do jobbank.gc.ca. So once we're here and the lovely fall colors, so the RAM, this is really a good time for your photography to really take off with all these nice fall colors. Okay, so we're on jobbank.gc.ca. We're going to career planning. We're going to fields of study. So here is where you would tap in the course or kind of what you're specializing in right now. So let me go back to the chat. I think I saw lots of mechanical. Let's do electrical. All right, so we'll do quickly electrical engineering. So let's see which one. And then what you can do here, there are options. So if you wanted to kind of filter through to see what's most related to what you're doing, that would be wonderful. So right now, let's look at power transmissions. This one doesn't have a master's degree, so let's go Electrical. See this one. So we want to make sure it has a, oh, why are these not showing me a master's degree option? All right, let's try this one. Okay, so electrical, electronics, and communications engineering. So you want to make sure you go to master's because that's as far as it goes right now. They haven't gotten to the PhD stage. So what you're going to see here on Job Bank, you'll see kind of a pie chart of folks who are employed with a degree that's similar to what's listed here. You'll see how much folks are earning, right? And this is a medium kind of median range of what they're making. You'll see how many folks are not working and how many percent and what percent are not looking right now, okay? And then when you scroll down, what I like with Job Bank is that you can identify, these are bigger clusters of the types of roles that folks with these degrees are moving into, right? So if we wanted to go to electrical and electronic engineer, which is 35% of the stats here, folks are moving into this area. So what we want to do here, we want to look at the description. So what does someone in electrical engineering do? And then we want to learn more. And what I like with Job Bank, they'll give you points to help you with kind of your application development. If you're looking for words or for keywords that perhaps employers are looking for, this is a good place to find that, and you learn about the skills that you need for this role, right? And then what I like even more is that there is an opportunity here to extend your search. So if you wanted to really dig in to see specific roles that you could target, right? This is Job Bank really kind of breaks things down for you. So you're able to pursue specific titles, right? And then there are also related occupations here, which is something that you can look into as well. All right, so, and then with Job Bank, let's see, there's a trend analysis. So again, you can, let's do electrical engineering here. It's there, electrical engineer, right? So this is your NOC. Some of you might know what the NOC is. When you start applying for permanent residence, the government might ask you for this occupational number, okay? So let's do Ontario for now. So the province of Ontario, and let's search. Okay, so very similar to what we just saw, but what I want to see is the prospects here. Right, so what you'll see here is for electrical engineers in Canada, it will give you an idea, and boy, Alberta is not looking so wonderful at the moment. So what it does, it gives you an idea of the provinces, right? So provinces where this occupation is you know, there's prospects and there's room for growth and it's doing well, right? PEI, I don't know why it's undetermined, but it is. But there are some provinces here. New Brunswick is doing well. Saskatchewan is fair. What's Ontario doing? Ontario is fair for electrical engineers. So I really like this site because it gives you, you know, some of this kind of nitty-gritty hands-on information. Okay, and then another site I wanted to show you also was Ontario labor market. So ontario.ca/page/labor market. Okay, so if we go, and you can see my page, right? Thumbs up, yes, no. Are you with me? Yes, no. Ontario labor market. Perfect, thank you. All right, so on this site here, we just do a quick, you have lots of options here, but you can do a job search profile. So when you hit the job search job profiles, again, the NOC comes up, which sometimes is helpful. Let's see if that the same one worked. Yeah, so 2133 is for electrical engineers. We're going to do a quick search. And then we want to tap this here. So it gives you an idea of your annual income, your growth rate, and the openings available. Okay. And then if you scroll down, which is nice, I think this one is probably even a little bit more up to date than Job Bank. So it tells you what the outlook is for 2021 to 2025, which is wonderful. But this, I believe, is looking at the entire province of Ontario. So it's an Ontario-wide site, okay? So it gives you an idea of your income, what the top location is. So Toronto is looking pretty good for electrical engineers. And then, which is nice, again, it gives you an idea of projected openings, right? And then the number of annual postings. So if you are into stats and data, if you're measuring this data, this is also a really good site for you to really walk through. Great, so once you've done your research, once you started that exploration, and you've now identified, a lot of you already have career goals in mind. So once you've identified some of the career paths, right, that you'd like to explore, you know, you are applying to jobs as well, but it's important to start talking to people. So how do I find people who will talk to me? So that's probably some of the questions, or one question that you might be thinking about as you think about networking, right? So what I want to ask you, where have you been finding people? So similar to what was shared, so we are finding people through introductions sometimes. So it's important, especially when you're actively job searching, it's important to start letting folks know, let your family know, let your family's family know, right? Ask your family to tell their friends and let them know that you're searching and actively looking for work, because you just never know who might be connected to someone in your industry who might make decisions. You never know, okay? It could help also to get introductions from people like your professors, the folks in the room today, right? Sharing, I cannot stress this more. Sharing is caring. The more you give is the more you'll receive. So it's very important to share and be open, right? It's also important to follow up with people that you meet at events, right? So Tho talked about conferences. So with conferences, there are two ways that you can network, right? So with conferences, you can one, volunteer. So with volunteering, there is that opportunity for you to connect with the conference organizers, and the conference organizers are familiar with the people who they're inviting, the guest speakers, some of those key people perhaps in your industry, right? So it's important to volunteer because that might lead to other opportunities. If you can present at a conference, that's also another way for you to start networking. So once that conference is up, folks will start reaching out to you, or you can also reach out to people who you've seen on the attendance list, because that's something that I do at every single conference that I go to. I do a screenshot. I know it might seem stalkerish, but I do a screenshot of the attendees just because I like to make sure that my network and my connections are growing. I don't want to have a stagnant kind of list of people I can reach out to. So I make sure that I've identified folks who I want to connect with at the conference. And it's easier that way because when I start conversations, you know, my intro message is, you know, I saw that you attended so and so and so. I really enjoyed it. Would love to hear some of the sessions that you went to and whether it was meaningful for you. Right. So that's an easy way to start that conversation. All right. Job fairs are also another space for you to find people. Okay. So once you start talking to employers, it's important to make a note of their names, the recruiters, and follow up with them, perhaps by email. I would say email goes a long way. Industry events, so Tho talked about that as well just now. So any events that you're attending, if you're seeing alumni who are working in jobs that you want to be in, make sure you're connecting with them after the event, right? And when you connect, send a personal message. Especially if you're connecting on LinkedIn, let them know, you know, I was just at this event. I really enjoyed your presentation. I would really like to connect with you to learn more about what you do, right? There are sites like Eventbrite or meetup.com where you can actually find events that are happening in your area that might be industry related, right? And even we'll talk more about Meetup in the next slide. And then folks also do cold contacting. So you're just reaching out to people through LinkedIn, right? So you're scrolling profiles, you're looking for keywords. So maybe electrical engineer, Ontario. Maybe you want to put in University of Toronto to see who graduated from U of T, who's working as an electrical engineer in Ontario that might be able to provide you with insight, right? So you're doing that search on LinkedIn and then you're starting to reach out. Twitter is also another platform. I don't know if engineers are on Twitter, which is an important point. You want to find out where, like, where are engineers hanging out? Like, are they on Facebook? Are they on Discord? You know, are they on LinkedIn? It's important to kind of get some insights on, you know, where you can find people who, you know, would be valuable to connect with. Right. And then there are sites like 10,000 Coffees or Engineering Connect, which you should have access to, where you can start reaching out, because I've heard really good things about Engineering Connect. I've heard it's an exclusive, because I'm not even invited to Engineering Connect. It's an exclusive platform just for alumni from U of T. So that right there is your first kind of source for reaching out to people, right? So they've all graduated from U of T. They might be working in really kind of positions where you see yourself in a couple of years, and they might be someone who wants to invest or to support your career growth. Okay, so use these platforms as much as possible. All right, so very quickly, what networking is: it's a supportive system of sharing info and services among individuals and groups that have a common interest, right? So networking is not schmoozing, so you're not basically saying things that just people want to hear. You're not exploiting others for personal gain, because it's a two-way relationship. So they're going to help, you know, they're going to provide you with insight in the industry. They might provide you with connections, but you're also going to ask how you can help them in their journey, or how you can help them on a project that they're doing, right? It's about authentic connections. It's about, again, that two-way interaction and very thoughtful conversations, okay? And it might help you to get a job. That's not the goal though, right? The goal for networking is for you to connect with folks in your industry who can provide you with maybe direction and insight, and then that might lead to other opportunities. And then most importantly, right, with networking, it's a little bit more intentional. And then this idea of happenstance. So we're in a situation, or we're putting ourselves in a position where anything can happen, where, you know, we're making sure that we're being flexible. So in addition to targeting specific events and online communities, there is an indirect route to networking, right? So it's good when you start volunteering, when you get into activities, maybe sporting activities, when you're joining an artistic group. And I mentioned before, meetup.com, a really good place for you to find, you know, people with common interests. So maybe you're someone who likes to crochet, right? You can find a meetup group on meetup.com. And maybe there's an opportunity to meet in person if you're comfortable, right? But that's another area for you to start growing, because you never know what people do, right? So if you do find someone with a shared professional interest at these unrelated events, you now have two things in common, right? So you might also find someone who knows someone, and you're doing something that you wanted to do anyway. So if you love crocheting, you're at a meetup group for people who crochet. Somebody else there is an electrical engineer. They're working in their company for 7 years, and they know the decision makers, right? You're just putting yourself in a place for things to happen. All right, and then very quickly, informational interviews. So this is that next step, right? So once we've started connecting, once we've started to build those relationships, you want to start asking folks if they're open to meeting, perhaps a 20-minute, 30-minute conversation. And it's basically the idea of gathering information that will help you either in decision-making, or, you know, it will help you advance with your career as well, right? So if you don't know what you want to do with your life, informational interviews are a good career exploration tool. If you know what you want to do, informational interviews can also be a powerful networking tool. So why it's powerful: if you start having conversations, perhaps with someone in a company where you want to work in, and they know someone else in the organization who would be good for you to have a conversation with, you know, they'll probably be open to sharing that contact or doing that introduction, right? So you don't know where this will lead. So I'm not going to walk through this. I've shared with you a template. This is what you can use but make it your own. Please customize it to make sure it's in your voice. So this is basically a format that you can use to start contacting people, right? And I would recommend, folks are on LinkedIn, but some folks are not super active. They check their LinkedIn maybe once every 2 months, like once per year. So if you can find an email, I would say like email is a first choice. But if you know this person is super active on LinkedIn, they'll see your message, okay, or your connection request. So when you're sending these emails or these messages out, you want to make sure that you are showing a little bit of awareness for the situation that we're in. So you want to make sure that you start off that you're hoping that they're well. You want to make sure that they know how you found them. So I saw that you spoke at U of T last month on this topic. This is something I'm interested in. Explain why you're reaching out and how you would benefit from their expertise, and perhaps what your specific request is. So if you wanted to have a conversation, say it. I'm wondering if you're free in the next 2 weeks for a quick Zoom meeting. I'd really like to hear more about this topic, okay? So very intentional connection there. And these are just samples of what you can ask, right? So during the informational interviews, so during your 30-minute conversations, your coffee meetings, if you're looking to explore careers, you can ask questions about, how they got to this field, what's their career path been like. If you're looking, you want to know about their current position, you can ask them what a typical week looks like in their job, right? If you want to know about working conditions, you can ask them, how many hours they work a week. I've heard stories about engineers and architects. Sometimes those hours are nonstop, but it's good to know some of that insight as well, especially if you have other obligations outside of work, right? It's good to know how much time they're investing in their jobs, right? And if you would have to do the same as well, okay? Maybe you want to know if you have any autonomy, if you can make, decisions as well on your own. And then other typical questions, maybe you can ask them for advice. Maybe what advice do you wish you had while you were starting out, which would be helpful. Maybe you can ask for recommendations, what they think perhaps would be a line of work, depending, from what you shared with them. And then when you're really job searching, so when you've started to connect with hiring managers, you're connecting with decision makers, you're connecting with recruiters, right? You want to ask specific questions to help you in your interview and to help you with your application process. So you want to ask them about projects. If you were hired for this job, what type of projects would I need to, be engaged in, right? What would my day look like, right? What happens to a person in this role in 6 years or 6 months? What's the career path for someone in this role, right? What type of skills do you value, or what should I be aware of, right? And instead of asking in these sessions, can I have a job, right? Or will you be my mentor, right? You can ask, especially if you're meeting with a hiring manager or a decision maker, you can ask them, how are jobs normally posted? Are they filled internally? What would be my best chances of applying for a similar role? That's how you could ask those questions. And then for mentorship, so if you're looking for someone to invest in you and to support your development, you want to share with them that the conversation has been so valuable, right? And you have so many more questions, but you're aware that there are time constraints and you want to be mindful of their time as well. So ask them if you could meet in a couple of weeks, right? Are you free next Tuesday for a quick follow-up? I have so much more information that I'd like to find out. And then maybe you could also say, we've met a few times, I'm finding this so valuable. Is it okay if we schedule something regularly, right? Can we do this a little bit more often? I've really enjoyed it. But I am aware that you do have, other obligations, and I'm open to being flexible as well. Okay. All right. So I want to hear from you. Has networking ever felt easy? So when has it felt easy? And I did see some of you are very comfortable networking. There's no issues. So I want to hear from you when networking has felt easy. What made it easy for you? And I'll just check the chat in the meantime. Are there any ways to start meaningful discussions after connecting with professionals? Yes. Perfect. Thank you, Teresa, which is what we just talked about. Yes. So once you've started connecting, and you know what, I would suggest also on LinkedIn, you have people in your network that you can start connecting with even before like looking for other folks. So look at who's in your actual, like, what is it now? Your friends list? What is it called? In your networks. Look who's in your network and leverage those connections first, right? Because you've already connected, so now it's time to take it to the next level, right? So how you're engaging in meaningful conversations, you're going to share with them. I had a look at your career path. I'm super impressed by your growth in this field. You know, as I start to prepare my career kind of exploration or development, I'm really looking for insight on how to be successful or how to strategically get started, right? Would you be open for a quick conversation in the next 2 weeks? Okay. So very important to leverage the people who are already, like who you're already connected with before starting to reach out to others, and connect with companies. Make sure you're following companies that you want to work for, right? Because if you start connecting with recruiters, they're going to look at your connections to see, you know, if you're following the company, if you're really interested in working for them, right? So let's have a quick look. So making it easier. So what we're doing here, right? I know some of us are what we might consider introverts, so we're not comfortable, you know, using our voice or being as, you know, what's the word, what I'm looking for here? We're not as comfortable networking as maybe others are, right? So what's important that you know, that would help to shift your mindset just a little bit is to think about the learning that's happening, right? So when you start talking to people outside of your periphery or where you are, you're going to start discovering things, right? You're going to start learning new ways of new ideas, new things are going to start emerging. You know, your curiosity might be piqued, right? To think about it as what you're going to learn, right, from this experience. And networking doesn't mean you're going to have, you know, you're going to start calling people and you have to expel lots of energy. It could just be a nice email, as I mentioned before, which might help to start conversations, right? As Reza shared, you want to identify some common interests. So maybe they're researching, you know, they're doing research that's similar to maybe some of your postdoc work, or for those of you doing a PhD, maybe there's someone in a more senior role who's done research on the same things that you're doing right now, right? So reach out. There's something that you have in common, so you can share what you've learned, and then they'll share what they've learned. And who knows where that might lead to, right? You want to also reflect on what you can offer. So again, networking, informational interviews is not a one-way process. It's a two-way, authentic connection. So you're sharing perspectives as well. You're sharing advice. You're also being, you know, extending gratitude for the help that they're providing as well. And then it's a link to higher goals, right? So from this conversation, from this interaction, you know, where might this lead, right? So thinking about, you know, what will happen after, right? And I've, you know, for me personally, getting this job at U of T, I would say that I didn't get this job through networking, but I did a lot of networking prior to getting this position, right? So when I networked, I talked to people in different departments, and then they connected me with other folks who were in departments that I wanted to work in, right? So it's helpful. It's a good start, okay? And then you want to prepare. You want to reflect, research, review. So reflect on what makes you unique. Think about your skills. Think about the strengths that you bring as a professional, and what you want to share with people that you're talking to. Do some research on the organization before you go into these meetings, right? Look at the industries that they're working in. Do a quick scan of the people, their profiles that you're meeting with. Very, very important. If you've seen that they've, you know, been on a podcast, I know that's something that I've brought up in informational meetings I've had with folks. You know, I noticed that you did this podcast. I listened to the podcast before our session, and I was able to share nuggets and things that I was able to walk away with, right? People want to hear that. They want to hear that you're really invested. And then you want to review your application documents and make sure your resume and your CVs, your cover letters, everything is good to go once you've started networking, because people will say, send me your resume tomorrow, send it today. So you want to make sure it's ready and good to go, okay? All right, I won't go too much into building your online presence because we have lots of workshops on LinkedIn on how to do this. So again, you want to find out where the community you want to engage in spends their time online. So where are these folks? We talked about this before. Are they on Instagram? I doubt it, but you never know. You want to create a profile that's comparable to other professionals in the field. So look at folks who are in, material science. What are the companies? What type of companies are in material science? It's not coming to me right now. But for electrical, what do we have? What is Elliston? Civil. Elliston is civil. So think about, wherever you want to work, the type of industry, the type of jobs that you're interested in, look at folks who have these titles in their profile, kind of have a look at what they're saying, what some of the words are that they're using. And as much as possible, use keywords from the job posting as well when you're creating your profiles, okay? And then if you're on LinkedIn, again, I'm not going to go too much into detail because we have 15 more minutes. You want to ask questions. If people are posting things that you're interested in, comment, write a thoughtful comment. If you heard a presentation, again, similar to those thoughts, if you heard a presentation that really resonated and the person is on LinkedIn, tag them, create a post to share some of the insights that you gained from that presentation, right? Because this is going to extend to their contacts, which might lead to more networking, right? So very important to do that. And then to maintain your network, you want to follow up within 24 hours. So again, extending that gratitude, make sure you thank them for their time. If they ask you for something, make sure you're providing that within reasonable time. And again, we talked about quality over quantity, right? So you don't have to stay in touch with every single person that you speak with. But if you've started to make a connection with someone, you want to see how there might be a potential for further meetings, as we talked about. And then you want to try and deepen that relationship. Okay, quick pause. My gosh, the time is going fast. Any questions? Let me just check the chat here. Teresa. Yes, Toronto Hydro, Ontario Power Generation. Thank you. Wonderful. What about I'm close to the Darlington, what is this here? Darlington Nuclear. So that would be chemical engineering, probably chemical. Yeah, perhaps. Okay, let's move it right along. So very, very quickly, we do have a workshop, a couple of workshops coming up that go into much more detail with regards to your application documents, so CVs, resumes, cover letters, and I will share that with you shortly. So what I just wanted to quickly mention with your application documents, right? So I think someone before, when talking about job search, I'm not sure who mentioned it, but they're applying for a lot of jobs. We're just sending them out, one after the other. So I think what would be important, if you can prioritize your application. So think about, maybe in that first quartile or that first block, for the jobs where you meet most of the requirements, is 70 to 80%. You really, really want this job. It would be a perfect fit. The company, the organizational values, the duties are, what you want to be doing. So you want to spend more time with those applications, right? And if possible, I would really encourage reaching out to perhaps a hiring manager, maybe someone in that department. Let them know that you came across a posting, you're putting your application together. And if they could share some insight on, perhaps what the role is like, because you're really interested in submitting an application for this role, okay? Or once you've submitted your application, it's still good to reach out to folks in the company, maybe a recruiter, a decision maker, right? Maybe the team lead for that department, just to let them know that you're interested. And then the second block there is where you meet most of the required qualifications. So 70 to 80, not as excited, but I know I could do it. So this one, you're not spending super amounts of time, but you want to kind of prioritize your applications that way. And then number 3 is where maybe you meet some of the requirements. You're not sure if you want it, but you're going to put it in, you're going to submit your application anyway. But you want to really spend more time focusing on those number 1s, the jobs that you really are qualified for and are interested in. All right, so very quickly, and I think a point I wanted to make with regards to internationally trained professionals. So I've worked with internationally trained engineers for over 5 years. And the resumes that we put together for internationally trained professionals are the same as folks who have worked in Canada, right? So regardless of whether you've gotten your experience in Dubai, in Sudbury, right? Maybe in India, right? You want to make sure that you're showcasing some of the skills that the employer is looking for, right? So they're not too much, a lot of employers right now, especially now in the climate that we're in, they're open to folks who have international experience, right? Because in these jobs, sometimes you have to coordinate with teams in other parts of the world, right? So they're looking for that diversity. So what's really important for your applications is to make sure that in your bullets that you're demonstrating and you're showing how you've demonstrated skills that they really look for, okay? And some of the common resume sections, so we want to make sure that we have a summary or a highlight of your qualifications, and this is where you can really customize and showcase some of the skills that are required for the position. You want to have an education section. If you have awards or scholarships, you can add it there as well. And then your experience. And maybe if you wanted to, you can add, if it's relevant for the job, if you wanted to add some conferences, maybe where you presented material that's relevant for the industry, any certificates that you've acquired, and any memberships are important to add. All right, so what makes a great application? So we're looking for tailoring, right? So when we talk about keywords, look for words that come up a lot. So words that are in the posting that you see like repeated, those are words that you have to have in your job, in your resume. You want to also make sure your resume is organized, it's consistent, it flows nicely. People want to be able to read it in a logical kind of fashion. You want to focus on your skills and your accomplishments, right? And I will share with Teresa as well a resume and cover letter toolkit, which has some really good samples that you can use. Is anyone here using CVs, or is anyone putting together a CV? Any folks here going into faculty positions? Yes, no? Right. And just very briefly, accomplishment statements, your what, your why, and your how. So these are, so in your resume, under your experiences, you'll have bullet points of like what you did in those roles, right? So if you can take it a step further, if a couple of these bullet points can show what was the impact, right, that you made through the action and the what you did, right? So what was the end result? Okay, so these are some examples of accomplishment statements. They're qualitative. I think for you folks who are in, kind of the engineering space, it's important to add figures. Like employers like to see that quantitative data, right? So some of those numbers, budgets, if any of you are in project management, so they want to see the type of budgets that you worked with. And quantitative accomplishment statements are usually pretty helpful for your industry. All right, and then very briefly, and again, there are workshops coming up that are going into depth with these topics, but we just don't have enough time today. The time is almost done. So I'll go very briefly into negotiating offers, right? So once you've done your research, once you've started finding opportunities, once you've started applying for opportunities, once you've started networking, and you're starting to do all those interviews, and then you're getting your offers in, right? It's really, really important for you to really assess what your, what the employer is providing you with, and if it's something that you want to proceed with, or if it's something that perhaps you want to negotiate, right? So when you're negotiating job offers, here are some factors to consider. So you want to think about, the company that you're going to work for. Is there, is the industry, are their values aligned with your values, right? Are they promoting products that perhaps is something you're not comfortable with, right? So that's important to think about. Look at the salary. When we do our research in those steps before, the second step is, or first step is your research. So when you look at Glassdoor, when you look at Reddit, when you look at Job Bank, right? Is the salary in line with kind of what you should be earning at, with your qualifications and with your experience, right? And then look at the benefits or perks. Does this kind of make the salary, does it help out with that salary that's being offered? Could there be more that could be offered? Is there an opportunity for saving? Is the job, 10 minutes away from you where you can walk to work? It should be ideal. Or is it really going to be expensive? You're going to Vaughan and you have to take 2 transits to get there, right? And then those hours and the travel time, is this role allowing you to advance within your career? Is there room for growth? Like, what's a typical career path, right? And then think about, looking at the role. So look at what folks have said about, if people have written about their experience within that role, or if you can talk to someone, that's actually even better. If you can talk to someone who is in the position that you just got offered for, somebody who worked in that company, right? Just to ask them what their experience was like, right? Or what the company is like. That could help you to make a decision as well, right? All right, so we want to make sure that we're reflecting. Again, research is key. You all are researchers, so this should not be an issue for you. So when you're reflecting, you're thinking about, why do I want this job? What do I want to happen? Do I want to start next week? Do I want to perhaps keep looking? Do I need this job right now? Do I have space to keep exploring other options, or is this a good fit for me right now? And then research. Is there any more information that you need, right? Perhaps they just, said to you verbally, we'd like to present you with an offer. You always want to make sure that you have it in writing. So you want to also see if there are any supports available. And then when we relate, who needs to be involved in this negotiation discussion? What are some of their expectations? Perhaps it's a job where you have to work for 3 months and then there's an opportunity for a higher salary upon completion of your probation, right? And then a reality check. So what's reasonable? Is everything that they're offering me, is this good for me to get started in my career and to grow? Am I being flexible enough, or am I being too rigid, right? So very important to consider. And other things that you can negotiate. So folks tend to negotiate salaries quite a bit. Some folks negotiate benefits. That could be something else. So maybe your vacation time. Maybe if they're not offering like health and dental and vision, that's something that you can ask if that's that could be provided as well. Some folks need accommodation within their roles, right? Maybe your start date is something that you can negotiate, because maybe you're wrapping up your postdoc work and you needed a couple of weeks to start. Some folks are asking for work from home, and it's something that employers, some are open to, some are not. Some employers really want you to be, and especially if you have to be on site, they might want you to show up for work daily. And then thinking about moving expenses. So if you had to move to BC for this job, you're in Ontario, can you provide me with a stipend or like some arrangements for that time where I'm moving? And then perhaps educational loans, right? So I'm looking to pursue my PhD or a PhD. Is there an opportunity perhaps to fund a part of, my ongoing professional development? All right, so I think that's it for now. That was a lot of info. That's the most I've talked in a long time, but I'm glad that 52 of you are still here. And so what I would really encourage you to do in terms of next steps, start, if you haven't decided what your goals are, what you wanted in a career, right? It's really time to start engaging in self-reflection to get to know yourself. Start doing some research to find out where your people are, right? Build an online presence if you're comfortable doing so. I'm going to share a handout with Teresa as well and the slide deck. set some concrete goals. So for me, when I was job searching before getting this job at U of T, I had daily goals for how many people I would reach out to, right? And I made sure to hit those goals daily, right? And then additional support. So we do offer virtual appointments with me. We have a team of, I think, 9 of us. So you can always do one-on-one appointments with any of us throughout the semester and attend other online workshops